Good afternoon and welcome to the San Mateo Arboretum Society's hybrid succulent topped pumpkin workshop. The Zoom portion will last approximately 60 minutes and be recorded. A few days after the presentation, you will be emailed a link to the recording and to an evaluation form to provide feedback. Kathy will answer any questions that you have during the program.
Yes, I will.
For those viewing on Zoom, submit your questions by clicking on the chat box icon at the bottom of your screen. Zoom viewers can create their succulent top pumpkins along with Kathy, and hopefully will show us their creations at the end of her demonstration. Before we start, a little information about what is happening at the Arboretum. Our nursery in San Mateo Central Park is open Saturdays and Sundays, noon to 3 p.m. Payment is by credit or debit card and Apple or Google Pay. No cash is accepted. The nursery is staffed by volunteers and may occasionally be closed, so check our website, sanmateoarboretum.org, or call 650-579-0536, extension 2 for updated information. Master Gardener plant clinics are scheduled from noon to 3 p.m., usually on the same day as seminars or workshops through November. While you're in Central Park, visit our newly renovated fairy garden, butterfly hummingbird, and sun and shade demonstration gardens. And of course, the rose garden. All these gardens are maintained by Arboretum Society volunteers. Now I'd like to introduce Kathy, today's workshop instructor. She's a volunteer who wears many hats at the Arboretum. She has a wide range of creative talents in addition to creating beautiful living arrangements. She started months ago collecting succulents. That's why we have such a good supply of succulents. Thank you, Kathy.
All right, welcome. Thank you, Sue. All right. So I'm hoping not to take an hour this time. Last year's Zoom was my first time doing it, and I over-explained everything. My daughter says I talk in paragraphs, so I'm going to try to talk in sentences. So to start, what we're going to do is you've got glue at your tables. And each of you have this stuff. Mine was a piece this size, and I've broken it up into 4 different sections so that I can get it around the stem of the pumpkin. You have a choice to keep your stem, you cut your stem off. It's totally up to you. I've taken from our tables where we have the succulents a variety of things that I think that I'm going to put on my pumpkin, and kind of, played with a little bit. I've got a nice big one, which is my thriller, and it's the way I was taught this was to do a thriller, fillers, and spillers. So I've got my thriller, and then I've got a few things that are going to fill, and then I've got these. I might be closer to the camera. These for my spiller. There are all kinds of things you can use for spillers. This particular pumpkin, you'll notice I've got a different type of ground cover succulent that I have growing in my yard that I pull up and use for this. And then there are naturals that you're going to add to your pumpkin. And this one in particular, Sue and I tend to kind of look at the ground a lot, because when we're looking for things that we can add, I happened to find this big cluster of acorns. Didn't even know they grew that way. It fell out of the tree during a windstorm right there on the corner of 9th and Palm. And I spotted it and said, ooh. So I actually sprayed it with some fixative, but it's still coming apart a little bit. So I just have to glue it back together. Anyway, so that gives you an idea. Then you've got things that can add color. Those are in the back, leaves. You might, want to just kind of add them. So we'll do that as we go along. First thing you're going to do is you're going to open up your glue. The top may still be on it. You're going to want scissors, or Sue, did we actually open all these, or are they still sealed? Okay. And very simply, you're going to add some glue to the top of your pumpkin where you're going to put your grass. And you don't need a lot, but you need enough so that it's not going to come loose later. And then I've got these little cups that I salvaged from my guacamole. You can use an ice cream cup. I hate throwing stuff away, so, but what this does is it allows me to leave my glue sideways. And when they're full, they tend to drip. I don't want it all over the table, so I'm doing it this. The nice thing about this is once the glue gets a little less, it'll actually sit this way because there's more glue down here. And then you have it ready the minute you want to pick it up and put it, rather than having to spend so much time. So then you're just going to take your pieces, and you can actually use one piece and maybe create a hole in the middle and do it a different way. But this stuff is particularly thick. Some of you will have thick pieces, some will be thin, and you may want to just kind of thin it out towards the edges. That's up to you. Some of this is just a little creative, and some people tell me, oh, I'm not creative, I'm not crafty, I really don't know, and I'm thinking, it's really not that hard. You have an eye for things. I mean, you put your furniture in different places, you put your pictures on the wall. We all have an eye for stuff, so you just have to kind of let go and think about it from a different perspective. All right, so all you're gonna do is just that. Sorry, Kevin. Not sure which camera I'm looking at. So you're just gonna put your greens on top. Now, if you leave a little bit of space between your stem and your greenery, then when you go to put something like this on, you actually have a nice place to tuck a stem, if it actually works that way for you. And all you're going to do is you're going to take your succulents and you're going to add a little bit of glue. Now, I use white glue in particular because while it takes a little bit longer to dry, if I need to adjust something 20 minutes from now, it's not dry yet. So I can put this here and I can say, okay, I kind of like that there. And I can put some of my other things in. You can trim the stems. Some of these in the back have some long stems. Some are shorter. And you're really just gonna position them around your pumpkin. Now this in particular, I wanted to show you this one because this is a particularly nice, I love the way these look. They're very soft and frilly. But the very thin leaves on these, if you don't spritz them daily, they will start to dry up. And then you have a spot in your pumpkin that's empty. So just a thought on that one, just to think about what you're putting on there and what kind of time effort you want to put into it later. I don't mind spritzing mine daily because I've got other things that I spritz at home. But you're just going to, position them in there different ways. You may want to put your spillers on first. You may want to fill your spillers in later. That's something to think about. And I'm just going to kind of move these around and tuck them in. And if they're too, obviously that one's too long because I don't want it dragging. So I may want to cut this one a little shorter. That one's really interesting. It's got roots there. Okay. And this is when I might want to actually move some things around. In this case, I'm actually going to glue it while it's in place there. Another one over here. This one's pretty. Okay. And the nice thing about having the the moss here is that when you go to spritz your pumpkin later, the moss will collect some of that and keep some moisture there. Not so much that you have a puddle in the middle of your pumpkin, but just enough so that you can get just some moisture to these, for the full 24 hours or so between your. And I may want to add, just a little bit of color. And I can think about that one, but I kind of like that. The white pumpkin with the orange. A lot of you collected these ribbons because they are nice and bright. And what I did with these, and it was pretty simple actually, is I just took and I rolled it. And then you can either use a rubber band. That's what I did initially, is I used a rubber band. You could use a twist tie if you have them, but I just used a rubber band in the middle. And then I did this, and I again used the rubber band and just twisted it around and got like a little nubby on the bottom of it. Everybody see what I did there? So there's a little nubby on the bottom of that. I've got and then I've got this. Now, you may like the kind of circular look, and you could just add it to your pumpkin somewhere here for some extra color. What I did with one of the other ones is I actually took and I was thinking about cutting it so there were like leaf shapes, but as I did that, I realized this was just going to fall apart. So it was just cut. Did we have scissors handy? I didn't think to put them here. Anyway, we'll leave it. Don't worry about it, Kevin. So I actually just cut it and then just kind of made it frilly. So, it's up to the look that you want. Thanks, Kevin. Should have planned for that. So all I did was, just kind of took it and cut a couple of places. And I guess if you cut it just right, you can actually get some like a triangle in here. Sorry. And then just make it a little more frilly, if you will. And then we're just going to add some glue to it. Now this is where sometimes the glue guns come in handy, because the glue will solidify very quickly. I don't like using it on the succulents because it's so hot. And if you think about it, if you get some of that on your skin, how much that hurts. If you want your succulents to last, if you're going to put it on the bottom leaves, so in theory, you could just put the hot glue on the bottom of the leaves and then stick it in, but those leaves are probably going to die, and I don't know how good it is for the plant. So there's that. So I've got some color here and some color here. I can add, and you notice I haven't used all the succulents that I picked. I've used, it looks like 3 fillers. I might be put another filler or 2 in there, but I'm going to start with my naturals that I picked out. Just a couple of interesting things that I just like the look of. And I'm going to tuck them in to fill some of the spaces where the green is showing on the, and later I may come back and I may want to rough this up a little bit more if you like more of a rugged edge on this versus just having a very cut edge. And that's really it, ladies. This is how simple this is to make something that is absolutely gorgeous. And you can use it all through Halloween. And it looks great on the Thanksgiving table if you have Thanksgiving celebration with your family. And if you spritz it, regularly, not necessarily daily, it depends on the type of succulents that you have on it. You might get away with spritzing it every 3 or 4 days, once a week. The succulents will tell you, they will start to wilt. And you can see that from some of the ones that we have in the back. We've been spritzing them daily, but in this heat, it's just a lot. And they don't have roots. So, they need that spritzing. So all you're going to do to spritz them is, I may not use this one to spritz because the glue is absolutely wet right now. But you'll get the idea. from this one. And I've got 2 more examples in the back there. But so what you're going to do is you're just going to, around the base of the stem, you're just going to get it in there and get a little bit of water around the base of the stem. I mean, you can do it that way. They will absorb some of that. But what you're really trying to do is get around the base of the stem on these wet so that they actually can root, but because they will root on the pumpkin. I've had the little mini pumpkins sitting on my window ledge in my kitchen last as long as 8 months. So just depends, and I had one lady last year tell me that when her pumpkin started rotting, she just put it in the ground. That might be okay. It's kind of goopy. I don't know how good that is for the succulents, but maybe it's fine. Then you would probably need to water it.
Cut the top off and set them in a pot or in the ground.
Yeah. And that's the nice thing about using the water soluble glue is if your pumpkin starts to rot and you really don't want to deal with the pumpkin, you can just cut the top off and then soak this in a pan of water and all your succulents will come loose. And you may find, after 6 months that there's some good roots there. That's one of the ways that I have this great garden full of all kinds of succulents, different kinds of succulents, is because of having a variety of these things. And these spillers here, I just kind of tossed some of these in the side of the house in an area where I just had some dirt and weeds, got rid of the weeds, and it just took over. So it's really a great ground cover. So I think that's it for the moment. We can get started on actually building. Does anybody have any questions before we get started? Particularly the folks on Zoom. Has anybody got their pumpkin ready? I went through it pretty fast. No? Okay.
Do you want to comment about not puncturing the pumpkin?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Kevin. It's really important. Pumpkins seem pretty sturdy, and they throw them all around in the supermarket and they get bumped a lot. But at some point, they become a little more fragile. And if you do bump them hard, you're going to find that's the spot that rots. So just kind of when you're looking at your pumpkin. Now, I thought this one might not last. This one I bought a month ago when the pumpkins first came out, September like 1st or 2nd, at Trader Joe's. And it's kind of craggly looking, but I was looking for a flat pumpkin with a lot of color. And so this one, I'm sorry, I'm not even showing the camera. So this one, the reason I bought this is because of the color, even though it's a little ratty looking around the side. You guys can see that there. I don't care.
Character. Oh, yeah.
It has character, right? Now I could have covered that with some additional spillers. Now that's how much water was actually I spritzed. So I'm actually getting a little bit of water coming off of it. So that might be another thing that you might want to think about is if you spritz it and then turn it so that you get some of the excess water off. You don't really want a puddle sitting in the middle of your pumpkin because I think that might cause the actual pumpkin to rot because you're going to have water around where the stem is. So questions?
A little bit. I could see your thriller.
In this case, can we get this one back, Kevin? See, I've got that. This is the one that I've got standing up is this one.
Okay.
Additionally, I've got some of this jade that's been out in the sun that has the little red tips on it.
I got it.
Yeah, so there's and then you can see I've got quite a number of fillers in there, and this is my big thriller. So, other questions?
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go, she says. How about on the Zoom? Does anybody on the Zoom have a question? No?
Nope.
All right, then we're good. Let's get started. Oh, okay. I'm going to turn it back over to Sue.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. Great, you really went through that quickly. It's gorgeous. I gave one to my brother, and they still had it on their dinette table a year later.
Wow.
I think it's important to keep the bottom dry because it'll rot there too. So,
Oh,
a little trivet or something. on the bottom helps, but anyway,
Oh, and there was a question last year about keeping it outside versus inside. And having them outside is okay. My sister had hers on her patio table, but it only lasted about 3 months. Because she's got animals and the morning moisture. So
anyway. But great,
kind of fun.
it's beautiful. So, guess none of the Zoom participants have a completed pumpkin to show us? You went through it too quickly for me.
I know.
Yep. Anyway, in a few days, all attendees will be emailed a link to a recording of the presentation and an evaluation form. Any unanswered questions can be addressed at that time. We appreciate feedback on what worked and where we can improve. Oh, that is
We actually
so
had,
cute.
Kevin, you want to switch over to this camera again?
That is so cute.
One of the participants in class actually created this while I was talking. Isn't that lovely? And that's, uh-oh, we got to reglue that one.
That was my last one, right? I hadn't second in part.
Well, and that's a perfect example of that's why I didn't want to spritz this one, or I would notice I moved it very carefully. The only other one thing I would say, and I forgot to say, is after you finish, you may want to just kind of push them back into, just make sure you're pushing them into place, because that glue is still, it's tacky, but it's still wet, and there is gravity. So they may end up
Be
falling off.
careful carrying them home, but you'll have your glue left over. You have some glue left over, so if you need to do some repair work, you'll be able to. Okay, please join us for future seminars and workshops. Our November program is a quick introduction to Ikebana design with Nancy Locke. You can register on our website, sanmataoarboretum.org/classes-events. Also, become a member of the Arboretum Society and receive a discount on workshops at a variety of nurseries and businesses on the peninsula, and a 10% discount on purchases at the Arboretum Society's nursery, and a discount on upcoming holiday wreath workshop. The Arboretum Society has a variety of volunteer opportunities in the greenhouse and nursery. Education Committee, we'd love to have one more member. It's fun working on these events, and many more volunteer opportunities. Let us know if you're interested by completing the evaluation form, or you can email us at info@sanmataoarboretum.org. Huge thank you again to Kathy for today's creative workshop, to Kevin, our president, for handling the technical part of the program, to Francesca for helping. Thank you for joining us today. The program is now finished.
Thank you.